Today we're going to be talking about the clinical application and drug development. We know that there is a Center for Innovation at the University of Colorado, and you are a member of the center. Can you tell us a little bit how the center is important for your research?
The unique thing on this campus is we have an innovation center that supports various stages of innovation, from early stage to drug development, and provides a lot of the pieces that are required to get through that. So for our work, we've developed some novel therapeutics to treat diabetic wounds and to treat acute lung injury. So as part of that, there's funding available, there's expertise in developing the patent, filing for patent protection, then the business development aspect to forming a company, to getting funding to support those applications to the FDA so that you can develop a new drug. That's part of the biggest challenge. There's this area from idea formation to actual implementation that's been described as Death Valley, just because it's so hard to get across. And we have an innovation center here on campus that's been very effective in helping, particularly our work, to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit more about the therapies that the center helped you develop?
So our intellectual property is around treating oxidative stress and inflammation in various disease states. Right now it's diabetic wounds, inflammatory colitis, and in the heart following a heart attack. We've also shown that one of the things that's unique to skin, and in particular diabetic skin, is that it's weaker. So you have a diabetic who's got a neuropathy, can't feel their legs very well. Their skin is biomechanically inferior, more likely to be injured. So we found that if we use a nanotechnology involving silk, we can make that skin stronger. Mm-hmm. And we can use that same technology to deliver our other therapeutics. So one of the things we've shown is that this nano silk can improve the resilience of human skin, can make it stronger and more resistant to injury. And that has a host of applications, not only to diabetics, but to patients in the hospital that are at risk for developing bed sores, to patients from a cosmetic aspect to make skin more resilient and more cosmetically appealing.
Mm-hmm. At what drug development stage is this therapy at this time?
So currently we're in the process of submitting what's called a pre-IND package to the FDA. Mm-hmm. So basically we tell them what studies we're going to do to prove that it's safe in humans, and they can agree or make suggestions. Part of the process, though, is we have to manufacture our drug in the same fashion a drug would be manufactured, and it's complex and expensive. And the Innovation Center and the Gates Foundation and Gates Biomanufacturing facility here on campus are working with us to be able to manufacture the drug here on campus so that we can use that in our clinical trials and application to the FDA. So right now that's where the diabetic wound healing application stands. We also have the nutraceutical, where we're looking at our nanosilk as a strategy to improve skin strength and to potentially prevent ulcers, and so that's more of the cosmetic or device world, and we're currently in the process of getting those applications together.
How important is that you can find all this support, all this variety of entities on campus? How is that important for you to develop these therapies, especially that they're all on the same site and you can access them?
Well, I think there's been a real change in the philosophy over the last several years about how to approach intellectual property and its development, and I think that's a change for the good here on campus. Because I'm not an intellectual property person, I'm a pediatric and fetal surgeon. I don't build businesses. I have ideas about therapeutics, but when it comes to actual business development, navigating the regulatory pathways that allow it to be used as a drug, or the pathways that may regulate its use as a device, to have that expertise on campus, or have the quote-unquote toolboxes there available to seek out those answers is a tremendous resource.
You mentioned that your therapies are at the pre-IND stage of drug development. What comes after the pre-IND?
So the pre-IND is a roadmap of studies that you have to do to get it to human trials. Once you've done those studies and the findings have been as expected or as laid out to the FDA, you can get what's called an investigational new drug number. And with that, that enables you to do clinical trials in humans. So there are clinical trials that start with toxicity, dose responsiveness, and then efficacy to show that it has an effect better than standard care. So we're currently in that process to get the pre-IND to move on to then getting our IND application done.
Interesting. The last question that I have, we know that diabetic foot ulcers are a big problem, and it costs the government billions and billions of dollars every year just to treat these patients. And usually these treatments are not cheap, they're expensive. The therapies that you are developing, do you take into consideration like how much the cost will be in the future? Is that part of your research?
So obviously you don't want to make a therapy that would be cost prohibitive. Mm-hmm. And from our preliminary results, this is going to be a dramatic difference in cost. One, because in our preliminary studies, we've just used a one-time treatment. So if this is a once-a-week treatment, and it's not expensive to develop, then it's not very cost prohibitive. Currently, the only FDA-approved drug for diabetic wounds is a daily application that results in over $1,500 in cost just for that one course of treatment. So I would anticipate that we're even lower on that. But again, when you look at the cost of a diabetic foot in the United States, if you develop a diabetic foot ulcer, that 80% of the time, that proceeds and leads to an amputation. So 2/3 of all amputations in the United States are due to these foot ulcers. So, that has to factor into the cost too. What is it worth? Because once you get an amputation, you have much higher energy expenditure to get around, and it becomes a slippery slope. So if you can preserve limbs with this approach, that would have a dramatic impact in outcomes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Liechty. Looking forward to know more about these treatments and the clinical trials, and hopefully we see it one day on the market. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you.